What was the dumbest thing you've ever been asked by a customer? I used to work at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. We'll pick you up. I went to pick up a customer. Worth noting, she was renting a car for a weekend getaway. Called her when I got to her aped, and she came downstairs and had this conversation. Lady, okay, I'll follow you back to the office. Me, confused. I'm here to pick you up and drive you back to the office. Lady, what am I supposed to do with my car? Me, were you planning on leaving your car at our lot over the weekend? Lady, no, me, more confused. Why are you going to follow me in your car? I can drive you back to the office, finish the paperwork, and you can take the rental car from there. Lady, not grasping the concept. Well, how are you going to get back? Me, I'll drive us both in this rental car back to the office, where we can do the paperwork and you can take the rental car from there. That way, your personal car is still at your apt. And when you return the car on Monday, you can drive the rental car back to us. We'll close out the paperwork and we'll give you a ride home. Sound like a plan? Lady, that doesn't make sense. You're making this way too difficult. I'll just follow you in my car. Me, thinking the customer is always right. Okay, we get back to the office. I finish the paperwork, still astonished she qualified to rent a car, and hand her the keys to the car. Lady, okay, how do I get my car back to my apt? Me, lady, can you drive my car back to my apt? Me, I'm not authorized to drive your car. You're welcome to leave it here on the lot over the weekend if you want. Lady, okay, can you drive the rental car and follow me back to my house so I can drop off my car? This is what I was trying to do when I picked you up. There was no need to take two cars. Lady, I'd like to speak to your manager. Story 2. I used to work in a pet store. One night, a woman came in and said she had ordered a puppy off the internet and he would be arriving in the next few days. She had never owned a pet and asked several dumb questions, but the one that I'll always remember is, do puppies need water? Story 3. I used to work at the UPS store in high school. Our last pickup was at 7 o'clock and we closed at 8 p.m. Since we had private information in people's personal mailboxes in the store, security was a big deal. It was 8:30. Our tills were counted down, the alarm was set, our copiers, fax machine, and computers were shut down. Our lights were off, and we had closed and locked a ginormous red gate that separated the entrance from the rest of the store. Some woman ran up to the door and, like some demon in a horror movie, she hurled herself against the glass and screeched like a banshee. Keep in mind, we are very obviously closed with a sign saying we are closed, no lights on, and a giant red gate drawn down over the store. She began pounding on the glass and frantically yelling at us. My coworker worried. Something was wrong, like maybe she was being chased and needed help. He carefully opened the door just a crack to ask what was wrong. She immediately tried to wedge her hands and head in the crack and asked, "Are y'all open?" We informed her that we obviously weren't. Her logic was, well, you opened the door, so now you have to help me. She began wailing and crying that she had to mail a package. We explained that even if we were open, our last pickup was an hour and a half ago, and we couldn't even mail it until tomorrow. She protested, and we eventually got the door shut and locked, so we just stood there awkwardly in the dark, hoping she would leave. She kept pounding on the glass and saying, "I know you're open." As we debated what to do and if we should call the cops, this lady pulled out her cell phone and called the cops herself. The cops arrived, we explained the situation, and the woman accused us of lying, despite the sign on the door saying we closed an hour ago at this point. Then, in front of the officer and on security camera, the woman launched herself at my coworker and hit him in the face. She immediately jumped back and began fake crying that he had assaulted her. We were dumbfounded. She ended up getting arrested and my coworker pressed charges. So the stupidest question I got was, "Are you open?" Story 4. A woman came to the checkout and handed me a bag of mozzarella. She asked me what the ingredients were and if there were any chemicals in it. I turned the bag around and started to read the ingredients out to her. She grabbed the bag out of my hand, angrily said, "I could have done that myself," and stormed off. Story 5. I used to work in a phone shop. Had someone come in asking why their phone wasn't working properly. It was visibly scorched and melty. I asked why it looked that way. They said it came up with an error message saying it had been too cold. Not an error message I had heard of before, but I know phones can bring up errors for being too hot, so who knows? And so they had put it under the grill to heat it up. The grill. Their first point of call was to cook it. I said that's why their phone wasn't working. And no, it was not covered under the guarantee. Story 6. I used to work in IKEA in the section which sold wardrobes. Big behemoths of things, normally around 6 foot long and 60 kilos in boxes. Customers would regularly ask me would it fit in their car. After being polite the first few times asking them about the size of their car and guessing, I then just started asking them what color their car was. The amount of people who'd answer unfazed was amazing. Story 7. When I worked in a call center for home phone service, I had a guy call and angrily ask why we were still charging him for his phone service, since he had unplugged his phone from the wall a month ago. Story 8. Context. I was 16 during this. I work at Chick-fil-A and I'm taking orders as you do. Guy walks up and asks, "Aren't you supposed to be in school?" I look down at the clock and see it's 6 p.m. I look at him confused and say, "No, it's 6 p.m. He asks again. I say the same thing again. Then he yells, "All right, damn you," and leaves. Story 9. Many years ago, I worked at Home Depot. One time, I had a customer come up and ask me how to access the parking lot that's on the roof. I told him that we didn't have a parking lot on the roof. He didn't believe me, got super pissed off, and stormed out of the store to look for the access to the rooftop parking lot. Another time, I had a customer looking for a replacement cartridge for a faucet that he didn't have with him. If you don't know, there's literally hundreds of different types of cartridges. Anyway, I asked him what make and model of faucet he had, and he responded with, "You're the one that works in the plumbing department. You tell me." I told him that there's absolutely no way I could know what type of faucet he had in his home. The guy labeled me and then stormed off. Another time, I had a customer come up and ask me where the cat food was. Story 10. Years ago, before the internet was a thing, I worked in a small electronics shop. One day I got a phone call and it went like this. Him. "Yeah. Hi, I was just wondering, how far is it to your shop?" Me. Long pause, calculating how galactically stupid this question was, whether I was being pranked, and how a professional business person would handle this. Me. "Oh, it's just a few miles away. Come on down." Him. "Okay, see you soon." Follow-up. No idea if he ever actually arrived. I got busy and people came and went all day, but it was still the dumbest question I've ever received. Story 11. I worked at a hat store, and a guy asked if he could shrink his hat by microwaving it. I said no. He came back 2 days later to return his hat after microwaving. Problem was there was a hole in the front of it, because brewers' hats are made with metallic threading. Story 12. I'd like the sirloin, medium rare with no pink. Literally my first week on the floor waiting tables. Also, you charge for drinks from the bar. Why didn't you tell us? My favorite is when a guy asked what we charge per 2 oz shot compared to the cost of the bottle, and then said we were ripping him off. I really wanted to condescendingly explain capitalism to him, but I didn't have time. Story 13. I work in a security monitoring call center. A coworker called a customer to inform them of an AC loss for their security system. We usually just say, "Hey, your power's out," or something to that effect, but more professional sounding, obviously, because most of our customers don't know what AC means, and they get very confused. Well, this coworker said AC loss on the customer's voicemail for some ungodly reason despite knowing better. The customer returned the call a few hours later. I picked up. Me, Ken. "I help you?" Her, panicking, sounding on the verge of tears. "Oh, I hope so. I got a call that there's an AC loss at my house." Me. "Okay, I can." Her. "I'm out of town and I was having trouble with my air conditioner before I left." Me, seeing where this is going. Well, AC loss just means her. Does this mean there's no air in my house? Story 14. Used to work at a movie store. In the early 2000s, this dude with a thick accent kept calling in every other few weeks or so asking if we had this movie on DVD called Churro Man. I mean, this guy called a lot, and I told him that no such movie existed in our system. But he was adamant he'd seen it on a release schedule. Finally, a couple of months later, some guy walked up to me and asks me for the movie. I immediately recognize the voice and know who it is. After a few questions in person, I realized what the movie was all along. The whole time he'd been looking for true romance, and it had indeed just come out on DVD. The accent threw me off. Turns out it wasn't a dumb question and that I, in fact, was the dumb one. Story 15. I worked at Staples, and I had a customer ask if the printer toner was ethically sourced. This lady really thought laser printer toner was squeezed out of squids or some crap. Story 16. I sell stamps from my register at work. This was just a few days ago, actually. I had a lady come up and asked to buy some postal stamps. I asked her, "How many stamps would you like?" "We sell them in books of 2, 10, and 20. Her, "What? What does that mean?" Me. "It's just the number of stamps in the book. Do you want 2, 10, or 20 stamps? Her, suddenly getting angry. "I don't know what that means. What is a stamp? I don't know what a stamp is." Me. I eventually sold 20 stamps to her while she was vaguely hostile and suspicious about the entire concept of stamps and stamp quantities. I don't know how to explain this to you, lady. You're the one who came to me for stamps. Story 17. I thought it was the dumbest thing, but it turned out not to be. I was working at a department store, and this guy comes up to me and he shows me 2 of the exact same sweater. He's like, "Which one is burgundy?" They were both burgundy because they are the exact same sweater, and I'm like, what is this dude smoking? Or I thought I was being punked or something. And he sees me hesitating and he's like, which one is more wine red? So finally I just point at one and he's like, "Oh, thank you so much. I'm colorblind and I can't really distinguish this range of color." Story 18. It wasn't a question, but I once had a customer threaten that she'd never shop here again 2 weeks before the store closed for good. There were signs all over the store, and this was pretty big news in the city, so there was no way she didn't know how empty her threat was. Story 19. I work in it, and one day received a ticket from a customer who was very angry that a link on our website was broken. When I asked what the link was to or where it was trying to go, because our site has thousands of pages, they were incensed that I dared to ask them questions and wouldn't just fix it immediately. Sure, dude, I'll get right on checking the hundreds of thousands of links on our site and hope I find the one you clicked on in the next 3 minutes, because you refuse to give me more information. They complained to my manager. Story 20. I write erotica for a living. I have on a number of occasions received emails from people telling me how much they enjoyed my stories and asking what happened to me afterwards. I usually assume that they're just looking for a little bit of exclusive material, but some of them seem to genuinely not grasp the fact that they're fictional stories that I made up with my brain meat for money. I got into a discussion with one guy early on who wouldn't let the idea that I was just writing up my misadventures drop. I even pointed out that the girl in the story had a different name to me, at which point he replied, "I just thought you were shy." Story 21. I worked at a convenience store while in college. This married couple comes in and they go get drinks. The lady asks me if the bottled water's fat-free. I smile and just yes, and that brand is also calorie-free. She smiled and said thanks. Her husband gets out his wallet, shakes his head, and pays. Story 22. Absolute dumbest thing I've ever heard from a customer. Obviously, this is pre-GPS. Worked at a convenience store that was the first gas station once you reached an island. This was at the end of I-40, so it wasn't too uncommon for people to miss a turn onto 17, realize they had just crossed a bridge onto an island, and stop for direction. First lady came in and asked directions to Island B, told her to go back across the bridge. What bridge? The one you came across to get here? I didn't cross a bridge. Okay. So you came across by ferry? No, I didn't come on a ferry and I didn't cross a bridge, and I'm not on an island. We sent her 10 miles to the end of the island to make her take the ferry that wouldn't start running for another 2 hours. It was the only answer she'd accept. Second one, poor guy came in looking for 95 South, told him how to get to it, raised an eyebrow, asked him where he'd come from. He answered with a town an hour on the other side of 95. He'd missed his turn by 2 hours and had to go tell his girlfriend or so in the car. You could hear her screaming through the car and store windows. Story 23. One of my very first jobs was a stocking associate for PetSmart. Had a customer one time ask me if we have any Blue Buffalo brand dog food that has no Provan in it. She doesn't want to change up her dog's diet because it hurts his stomach. I had absolutely no idea what she was talking about, so I offered to help her find the proper food. When we get to the aisle, she points out Blue Buffalo and says it seems like they changed the recipe because they all have proven in it. On the bag, it actually said proven best recipe. This idiot actually thought the word proven was an ingredient. I explained that the recipe is the same and they just used new packaging. And it seemed to go in one ear, out the other, as she said she would go to another store to see if they carry the proper brand. Story 24. Not necessarily a dumb question per se, but by far the most memorable dumb customer encounter. Years ago, I worked for an Audi dealership as a greeter shuttle driver, and one blissfully quiet afternoon, a middle-aged woman in a beige A6 pulled into the drive. Here's how the exchange went down. Me. Good afternoon. How can I help you today? Her. This light came on. She points to the check engine light with concern in her voice. Me. Yes, that's the check engine light. Her, interrupting me. No, it's this one. The cell was the only light on at this point in time. Me. Yes, that's the check engine light. Her. Well, what does it mean? Me. There are literally thousands of different things that can turn that light on. But if you go into the office there, one of our service advisors can plug in a little computer and they'll tell you what's wrong. Her. Scoffs condescendingly. So you don't know what it means? Me. Ma'am, I think they can help you better than I. Story 25. I sell precast concrete structures, manholes, septic tanks, etc. And sometimes we get calls from folks all over the US looking for stuff while we only deliver in New England. Anywhere else, and shipping is your problem. Normally, when I explain this to those people, they accept and look elsewhere. One time, this person wanted me to quote a single catch basin for a job in California. Telling them we're in New England didn't even faze them, and they were persistent until I fully laid out the scope of shipping. 6,000 lalbis of concrete across the continental US, when they could easily find the same product several towns over. Story 26. Customer. Aren't those apples $2.49 a pound? Why are you charging me more than that? Me. Motions to screen, yep, they're $2.49 a pound, and you bought 2.3 pounds, and so the price is correct because that's how multiplication works. Story 27. I had a customer ask me where we sold alcoholic water, not hard seltzer, literally bottled water with alcohol in it. She refused to believe me when I told her we didn't sell it and proceeded to ask 3 other people where it was. Story 28. I worked at a Dollar Tree on Black Friday. Where are your Black Friday deals? We don't have any. Everything is still $1. People were pissed. Story 29. Had a homeless woman try to buy vodka with old receipts and random business cards and such. I had to explain that the dollar amount on an old receipt is not currency and cannot be used to pay for something. Story 30. It got a ticket from a lady saying her screen is blank. I called because I saw her in orientation, and to be honest, she seemed to have never used a computer before, despite being 19 and her title as a receptionist. Ma'am, is your computer on? I don't know. How would I check? Coworker next to her grunts and turns on computer for her. Oh, okay, it's on now. Do I have to type out my username and password to log on? No words could properly describe how I felt in that moment. Story 31. I had a customer take up 10 minutes of my time saying that I didn't know how to do my job because I couldn't find the nutritional facts placard on a carton of cigarettes. Why you who walk around with your head full of brains may ask? She needed to know if these timeless times piece of crap cigarettes contained corn syrup in them. Because don't chalk now, the corn syrup in bad for her. Story 32. I must look like some kind of DIY authority because people ask me questions at Home Depot fairly often and I don't work there, nor do I have any orange on. Story 33. Why doesn't my app make any money for me? It is published and people are installing it. App price. Free in-app purchases. None ads, none G-Guy, I ducking wonder. Story 34. I used to work at a Turkish kebab fish and chip shop with a wee sandwich cabinet. A customer asked if she could have a ham sandwich, and I told her that we didn't sell pig products as we were a halal store. She then said, okay, in that case, can I have a bacon and egg sandwich? No. Story 35. It was not a question, but one time guy told me his car engine was overheating, so I checked the engine and saw that everything was just fine. I asked, why do you think it's overheating? He said, it burned my hand when I was touching it. Story 36. Karen, I'd like to speak to the manager. I am the manager and the only person working here today. Karen, I don't like this policy. I want to speak to the owner. Good luck with that. Their email is on the company cards available on the desk, and I'll include my cell number, just because I'm interested to hear how it goes for you. Oh boy, did I get a pissed off text from her later that night. Story 37. Many years ago, managing a pet store, a customer came in with an empty bottle of oral skin and coat supplement. He wanted a refund because it made his dog's coat really greasy. So as I start working on his refund, I ask a few questions, trying to find out why the product failed. I ask the standard questions. Did you use too much? How often? Stuff like that. As we are conversing, it started to click that he didn't use this on his dog's food. He used it like a shampoo and rubbed it on his coat. So I nicely explained that it is oral skin and coat supplement, and it's intended to be put on the dog's food. He was embarrassed and apologized and started to leave, refusing the refund. I gave him a new bottle in exchange for the now empty one and told him to give it another shot. The guy was really nice and understanding about it, but come on. The instructions tell you how much to put on the food, and it's called oral skin and coat. Story 38. Web developer here. I had a client who was absolutely livid, literally screaming at me. When I told her she couldn't take the hyperlinked words from her webpage, transfer them over to her print ad, and still have them function like a link. Story 39. What brand do you fill your water fountain with? When I was working for a big box store, a lady came up to my station at the service desk with her kid and asked the above. I was a little confused, but told her I wasn't certain what kind of filter the fountains had. However, if there's an issue, I would try to help and could get a manager over or call the service information line on the sticker on the fountain. Her only issue, which she was eager to loudly and aggressively share, was with my incompetence at not knowing what brand of water we stocked our water fountain. Surprised Pikachu face wasn't a thing then, yet still I'm sure that was the expression on my face. Her kid liked the taste of the water. Admittedly, that particular fountain was badass. The water came out close to freezing cold, and it was a newer fountain, so very clean without the buildup of probably 40 years worth of diseases, minerals, and the souls, tears, and will to live of other coworkers flowing down the drain. The lady was convinced it was stocked with Aquafina or some crap and wanted to buy that brand of water to have to drink at home. It was too late in my shift. I just wanted to finish up my day, break down my till, clock out, and go the duck home. So I told her it was just the store's own brand, available by the gallon or 24 PKs of small bottles in aisle X, and it tastes great because it was kept refrigerated. I'm sorry, I know it was just as equally a dumb answer, but sometimes there's just no point in trying to honestly answer dumb questions. It would have only made her angrier, embarrassed her kid, and led to a "we need a manager showdown" if I explained how plumbing, plus water filter, and cold water woke. Story 40. Worked at a restaurant that sold chicken wings. We had just begun selling boneless wings. A lady asked me what was inside the boneless ones. I thought she was joking, so I just said chicken. Story 41. I used to work the front desk of 24-hour fitness making minimum wage, and a young woman was upset because I wouldn't let her heat up some food after her workout and then eat it in the staff break room. I was nice enough to store her food in the refrigerator for her when she brought it in before her workout. She actually walked into the break room and was like, "I'm going to use your microwave and eat this." I told her no, so she was like, "Well, can you heat this up for me?" I told her no again, and she just genuinely didn't understand why. Story 42. Some guy walked into my store, I worked in a mall, and asked if I knew where the dolphin with a toothbrush was. He just kept saying dolphin with toothbrush, and we thought he was mad. When I left my shift that day, I noticed the dentist around the corner in fact had a dolphin with a toothbrush on the sign. I'll never forget that interaction though. Story 43. I'd actually been working my first summer job at 14 years old. It was in a cafe which was busy and hectic at the time. Anyway, a middle-aged woman walks in and asks for a milkshake. Easy her. Could I please have a milkshake, me? Of course. Would you like chocolate or her? But I'm vegan, so could you please make it with soy milk? Do you have soy milk? Me. I'm afraid we have run out, but we have like almond milk, her. I don't like almond milk. I just told you I'm vegan. Pissed off at this point. Me. I'm sorry, but we don't have anything else here. Okay, then just do it without the milk. That should cost less too, right? Story 44. I used to work at a retail nursery in the tree and shrub department. I had a customer tell me to extra water a bush he was buying because he didn't want to have to water it until he planted it in 2 weeks. Story 45. Worked in a pet store that got tadpoles in occasionally. Do these become frogs? Yes, ma'am. Do you have the kind that just stay tadpoles forever? Story 46. I'm a chef at a grill. We also have a buffet for people who don't want something we grill. One night, the special was a type of seasoned fish. An old guy came up and asked, "Is this freshly caught?" I thought he was kidding, so I kind of chuckled as I told him that no, we order it and get it frozen. He was pissed and made a scene as he left it saying that only a crappy restaurant served frozen fish. I was in South Central Pennsylvania. Story 47. Not me, but a friend of mine worked on a boat tour. "Excuse me, miss, how far above sea level are we?" Looks over the side of the boat. "Well, I would guess about 3 feet. Story 48. Can I return the box for a full refund? The thing was stolen, so I don't have any use for it now. Not here, no. Call your insurance company. Story 49. Customer. Why can't you honor CVS's sales? Me. Because this is a Walgreens, ma'am. Customer. So, to those mentioning a price match option, you are totally correct, and this was a gross oversimplification of the situation, and I apologize for that. What I was meaning to get across was the sense of entitlement that some customers could show. Sometimes a customer got confused, thinking that they were in a CVS, and when something wouldn't ring up right, they got very irate, very quick. They would ask, "Isn't it supposed to be on sale?" while rolling their eyes and handing me a CVS sale booklet. Kind of like that thing where you wear your work shirt to another business, and people start asking you questions only to get mad at you when you say you don't work there. Story 50. Hopefully, it makes someone laugh. Worked at an animal hospital, and a woman made an appointment for her dog for lumps on his stomach. She comes in, sees the doctor, and only to be told that the strange lumps were the dog's nipples. She deadass said, "But he's a boy." Apparently, she has either never seen a man without a shirt or forgot that males also have nipples. Story 51. Will Anne Frank give the tours herself in the Attic Museum? Talking about the Anne Frank Museum in Amsterdam. Yeah, that's not a joke. Someone actually asked that and was completely serious. Story 52. Wasn't so much one question as a series of questions in which I had to explain to a grown-ass woman that I can't just make a key for her house without either the lock, wasn't a locksmith, but we had one on site, or a key to duplicate. She wanted me to make her house key from a key to a different house that looked the same. They were just both KDO1 keys. After about 20 minutes, I finally convinced her to bring me the correct key to duplicate. It was special. Story 53. Are you open? I sincerely got asked this when register light was switched off and a chain blocking entry to my register since I was due for a break and was about to leave for the break room. I almost wish I could ask that customer, "What do you think?" Story 54. Why can't I buy the Wii for the sale price? It says it's on sale here in the ad. Points. I know, I'm sorry, but as I said, sir, we sold out. We have no more Wii in stock. He then proceeded to berate our entire staff and yell about he made $25 an hour, and we were all losers. I hate holiday season in retail. Story 55. Worked at Starbucks. A guy requested extra macchiato on his caramel macchiato. I looked at him and asked, "You want me to extra mark the foam?" Then he looked at me and asked what macchiato even was. Story 56. I once had a customer ask me if our wine was on sale because it was about to expire. our good, aged red wine. The customer also insisted that she get a discount because the wine bottle did not have an XP date. Story 57. Customer walks in the front door. Company name on the door he opened. Looks around. Sees me. Am I in the right place? I don't know, buddy. You tell me. Story 58. I worked our Starbucks and a man asked for a chocolate frappuccino, iced drink, and a hot chocolate. When I gave them to him, he asked which was which. Story 59. Hands me bag of gummy worms. Her. Are there chemicals in this? Me. Yes. Hands me bag of plantain chips. Her. What about this? It's natural. Me. Ma'am, there's chemicals in everything. Her. Fine. I'm just take this then. Hands me a bottle of Diet Coke. Story 60. Only dumb thing a customer has asked, but this is it. Do olives have bones? I was in shock. Had to leave the shop there and then and reconsider my life choices. Story 61. Are you open? So many people asked the same stupid ducking question. There was a sign with open on it next to the window. There were people waiting for the next tour there. They just saw me take money in exchange for tickets. They waited behind half a dozen other people in line to ask me that. No, I wanted to tell them. I come here on my days off and stare out of this tiny window for fun. It's how I roll. Story 62. Not exactly a question, but one summer I worked in a kosher deli and had a customer get mad at me or us for serving mayo on meat sandwiches because she thought it contained dairy. Mayo does not. Story 63. Not a question, but this was always fun. While working as a mule wrangler at the Grand Canyon, there was a spot on the trail that had some lime deposits on the cliff wall. It looked just like a very light sprinkling of fresh snow. We would stop and point it out to our dudes and say, this phenomenon only happens in the Southwest because of our dry air. But sometimes the snow will actually dry out before it melts and we have petrified snow. It was surprising the amount of people that believed us. It was good fun, and they were good-natured when we told them the truth on the way up the trail. Story 64. Worked in retail. Regularly had customers asked to take the clothes out of the store and come back and pay later. Like, absolutely not? Most were also flabbergasted when I told them no. Story 65. My first Christmas Eve working retail, I had a customer ask for a Lego set that the store was out of. I politely told him this, and he followed up with, does another store have it? And I informed him that no store within 150 mile had it. His finale question was if we were going to be getting any more before Christmas, and I told him no again. Now, this wouldn't have been so bad, except he came back and repeated the 3 questions every half hour. Story 66. While working at Chase, a guy called and told me a story about selling a sink part for like $100. But the guy he sold it to gave him a cashier's check for $1,600 and told him to give him back $1,400. And he could keep $100 as a tip for doing him the favor. Obvious scam that happens a lot. He did it, and of course, 3 days later, the check bounced and the money was taken out of his account. He called mad as hell, demanding we refund him for the money. I told him it was a scam and that he would have to speak with the man who gave it to him. He even kept me on the phone while he texted the guy, and the guy dead ass sent him, this is his wife. He died and I don't know what you're talking about. Story 67. I'll give you it the other way around. I was the cashier and was bagging a sandwich for this lady, and instead of asking, the weather is nice today, isn't it? I said, do you like weather? Story 68. I'm a doctor, and we don't consider our patients as a customer. But still, I have dumb story to share with. I've had patient with huge urinary bladder calculus. We performed a surgery and removed the stone with all success. Patient was doing well, and one day on his follow-up, he asked he wanted that stone that was removed from his bladder. I said we sent it to pathology lab to get to know about the calculus. And it's been 2-3 weeks now, probably they discarded it into bio-waste. He was not ready to believe me, and he literally wanted his stone back. I almost spent 2 hours to believe him we don't have it. And finally, my paramedics called his mother, and she took care of the matter. Story 69. Working for a cable company in tech support. This happened on several occasions. Calls start with report of cable not working. First step is to ask what lights are on the cable box. Reply being none. Next step asks to make sure everything is completely plugged in. Response, I can't see anything, the electricity is out. The length of time it took on these calls to explain that not only does the cable box need electricity, but so does the TV. Still gives me the chills. Story 70. How long is your 12-inch sandwich? Yes, we referred to it as a 12-inch instead of a foot long, so people wouldn't get confused, but obviously it didn't work. Story 71. I worked for the Department of Natural Resources as a receptionist. Someone called and asked us to move a deer crossing sign because her son hit a deer, he was fine, on a blind turn, and it was a terrible place for deer to cross. We tried to explain that it's a warning, but she was convinced it meant it was a crosswalk for the deer. She also requested that we cut a beautiful tree down that was next to the road because it was a bad distraction. She was a piece of work, to say the least. Story 72. In my first job at a little local roast beef shack, we had a few combo deals that were obviously cheaper than the total of each individual item. I had a guy come up and ask for a roast beef sandwich and fries. I explained that I could ring him up for X combo meal, which would be cheaper, and he could get a drink. I don't want a drink, just charge me for the sandwich and fries. So I told him, even if he didn't want the drink, I could still ring it up as the total was still cheaper than individually ordering a sandwich and fries. Dude flipped out and asked if I was deaf, so I charged him for fries and a sandwich individually. Story 73. When I worked as a front desk person at a few different hotels, I would always get someone once every week or two call for directions and not know where they are. They would get unreasonably angry that I couldn't figure out where they were and give them directions. Can you see any landmarks around you? Shopping centers, road signs, or street names? Why can't you just do your job? Story 74. My wife and I live and work for the city of Virginia Beach. We both work in buildings on either side of the one where the recent mass shooting took place. That fateful day, my wife said that when the police surrounded her building and wouldn't let anyone in or out, there was a customer who, despite being told that there was an active shooter situation on campus and being told to barricade herself in the nearest room for her own safety, was upset that no one was helping her and kept asking everyone why. She wasn't allowed to pay her utility bill. Story 75. Not technically an ask, but I worked at a Quick Lube for years, and the company would send out coupons on these little postcards around the time you'd be due for your next oil change. We're supposed to staple the coupon to the receipt for audit purposes. Different types of coupons have different codes. A Karen got mad because I told her, prior to even starting the oil change, that we could not honor her coupon because she didn't bring it with her. Karen: well, I didn't know I was coming here. Me: you didn't know you were coming here? You drove yourself here. Story 76. Him on the phone: how much is this game? Made 76. Or him: how much will it cost on Boxing Day? Me: can't tell yet since we don't have the list of what will have a discount, sorry. Him: so, how much will it be on Boxing Day? Me: we don't know yet, but now it's $76. Him fashas at 6. Me: no. I send him, no. Him times texting, what's that number? The one that comes after 75? Story 77. So you know those yellow glasses for night driving? Do you have those for night driving but in a reading glass? You want to wear reading glasses while driving. At night, yeah, no, we don't have reading glasses for night driving. Story 78. Technically breaking the rules here, as the customer asked himself the dumbest question, but our bakery's donut self-serve case had mirrors in the back of the case to make the shelves look fuller than what they were. Drunk dude came in one night, opened the case door, and bent over to peer into the case. He then proceeded to ask himself to pass himself that choco bar in the back. You have to be a special level of drunk and or stupid to not recognize yourself in a donut mirror. Story 79. Not mine, but my brother. He used to work for a water tube company. A customer called in and started to complain that the tube he just bought made his boat go really slow when pulling it behind the boat. He wanted my brother to fix it. My brother, having grown up around boats, proceeds to ask about the boat, not the tube. Turns out the guy had a foot of standing water in the hull of his boat and hole in the side that was sinking the boat. Story 80. Driving trolley bus. 2 poles on top connected to wire path. Stopping at stop on beginning of bridge, 3 lanes each side. Passenger getting on, asks, do you cross the bridge? Well, I bloody hope so. Story 81. I work for our local electric company. Elderly lady calls and asks, do you offer a good citizen discount? Another time, I had an irate customer call me. She was mad because we sent her a letter telling her that we would be disconnecting her service in 2 weeks if she doesn't pay. She hadn't paid in 3 months. She asked me to stop sending disconnection letters because she was recently diagnosed with panic disorder and the letters cause her to panic. Story 82. Bank manager was complaining. Her office was cold after a major remodel. I checked thermostat in her office. Set point 70 degrees F. Space temp 70 degrees F. Double check with calibrated temp gauge, also 70 degrees F. Offer to turn up the thermostat so it isn't cold. Bank manager states, nah, her shoes should be warm enough. I shouldn't have to turn up the thermostat. I will admit I didn't know how to respond to that line of reasoning. Story 83. Customer. Can the police swab this car for STDs? Me. No, not unless it's criminally related to another investigation. Customer. Its license plate is slanderous towards my deceased mother and it's parked crooked. Me. No, we can't and won't swab it for STDs. Customer. You're an idiot. Life of a 911 dispatcher. Story 84. Where's the non-fiction? Asking what kind of non-fiction only angers them more. Vaguely gesturing to 2/3 of the store was no better. Explaining that there are multiple types of nonfiction just means that they will stop off towards that 2/3 section and return angrier than ever. These are the people that need to read more, but are too angry at the fact there are so many types of real things to be able to navigate the store. Story 85. I told her we didn't have any long stem roses left, and she asked if I had any I could cut longer. No, I cannot cut pre-cut short stem roses to be longer. Story 86. Not a worker, but was at the store the other day when this woman was trying to return light-sensitive holiday window candles. She kept plugging them in, but said they didn't work because they would not come on during the day. And the worker kept trying to explain that they come on when it gets dark. She could not grasp the concept. Story 87. I help manage a family-owned toy store that sells vintage and new toys. We get asked for some weird stuff sometimes, but the one that takes the cake is, do you sell any ashtrays? Story 88. I worked in a supermarket during the holidays as a student to make money, was the one who put products. And a customer asked me if I was an expert of toilet paper. Story 89. Hi, I just ordered $500 worth of aloe-based skincare from you, but I know I'm allergic to aloe, so can I get a refund? And will I have to return all the products because I still want to use them? Story 90. During an internship in a bookstore, I was asked where we kept the alternative science books. The guy was talking about flat earth stuff. He was really serious about it too. What was the absolutely worst customer service experience you have ever had? Story 1. Well, before last week, I would have said Comcast, but now I'm going to say the front office at my therapist's clinic. I didn't get to go see her for almost a year because I was extraordinarily sick, moved, and injured myself while moving to the point that I had surgery. I called to make an appointment, and they said that since it had been over a year, they had dropped me as a patient. Okay, so do I fill out new patient paperwork again? Well, she's not accepting new patients right now. Okay, so can I see a different therapist? Because I'm seriously having some problems. They've got like 20 of them in the same clinic. Well, since you're established with her and you have a rapport built up with her, we don't want to switch you to a new therapist. You could try calling back next month, but just so you know, she's booking 4 to 6 months out. At this point, I get pissy and say, okay, so I'm calling you guys because I'm having major issues. What if I was death thoughts? Are you going to tell a person with these thoughts that they can't see a different therapist since theirs is booked till May? And that's when she hung up on me. I called back and said, hey, I think we got disconnected, and she hung up on me again. So yeah, a mental health clinic that hangs up on people that have a history of death tendencies and are asking for help gets my vote. State mental health department has been called. Gave the guy the general rundown, and he said he was going to have someone call me back. Thank you for the suggestion. I'd gild you, but I'm broke till next Friday. I made a note on my calendar to do it then. Talked to the guy who called me back yesterday finally. He asked for all the details, which I gave to him. He said he may need to contact me again, and was that all right? I said, sure. I asked if they were going to investigate or something, and he said they were going to look into the matter and see if corrective actions are warranted. I feel like that part must be on a script. He even sounded like he was either reading it or reciting it from memory. So yeah. Story 2. My dad passed away in June of this year, and since my mom passed away in 2001, it was up to me to handle all of the post-funeral affairs. For those who haven't had to do this, there's a lot of work you need to do in regards to contacting people your family had accounts with in order to close them, handle legal stuff, etc. My dad was incredibly low income due to a medical condition, and I had to cancel his free government-provided phone. This is the story of the customer service experience from hell. It was a couple of days after the funeral, and I was sitting down to handle as much crap as I could get through. Prior to the funeral, my brother, sister, and I spent a week at my dad's bedside while he was in intensive care. I was tired, I was ragged, and I just wanted a chance to mourn. So I decided to handle what I thought would be the easiest things first. So I called the customer service department for this phone and was immediately greeted by an individual with a thick Indian accent. I'm talking so thick I could barely understand him thick. I explained the situation, and he then asked for my dad's account information, and I gave him as much as I could muster. It wasn't good enough that I had his account number and social security number. I needed his password, security word, and all sorts of crap. I explained the situation again. I was just looking to close the account, and he told me he'd have to pass me on to another department. I say, okay, and he puts me on hold. Half an hour later, I get individual number 2. Individual number 2 was another heavily accented Indian man. I explained the situation. My dad passed away, and I was just looking to cancel his account. I said I had a little bit of his account information. He pauses. So your dad is dead? The man said, emphasizing the word dead. Yes, he passed away a few days ago. But he's dead. Again, emphasizing dead. Yes, I am just looking to cancel his account. Well, if he were alive, you could cancel his account, but because he's dead, you cannot. He kept ducking, emphasizing dead, and I was floored. I asked why, and he said it was policy. I said I had the documentation to show his death, and I could provide that. He ignored me. I then began to argue with him for 20 minutes about canceling the account. He wouldn't budge. We went back and forth, him refusing because my dad wasn't alive. It wasn't until I asked for a supervisor that he relented and said he'd look into what could be done, a half hour later. Now, up until this point, I had been on the phone close to an hour. As the man gets on the phone, he again emphasizes that I cannot close the account since my dad was dead. But if he were alive, I could. I flip out. I told him I wanted to immediately speak to a supervisor, and again, he put me back on hold to find out more. Another half an hour. At this point, I had it. I was pissed off. I was hurt because every instance that this guy could, he used the word dead. He offered no condolences, he didn't seem to give two craps about the situation, and he was generally a banana. His attitude, his unhelpful nature, everything screamed get. When he gets back on the phone, he tells me he was able to talk to an individual and cancel the account. But in order to cancel the account, I needed to call back in 3 to 5 days to make sure his account was canceled. I asked him why I had to call back to make sure it was canceled. He said it was policy. I told him if he wanted a copy of the death certificate that I could fax it or email it that second. He says no. He again says, because my dad was dead, I couldn't cancel his phone and he was doing me a favor. He stressed if my dad were alive, I could cancel it. I'd then absolutely lose it. And no, this story doesn't have a Loch Ness monster asking for $3.50, sorry. Story 3. I bought a Nook tablet not long after they came out. These cables looked like micro USB cables, but contained 2 extra wires that made it so that regular micro USB cables couldn't charge the tablet. Nook sold these cables for $20 each, and they were so poorly made that they quickly fell apart. I went through 20 in the first year alone. Granted, most of them were given to me free, while my warranty was valid. After my warranty ran out, we went to buy another cord, as mine had once again torn up. None of the nearby B&N stores had any. The website didn't have any. I contacted customer service to see about purchasing one from them. They get my account info, Nook serial number, then tell me they can't send me one because my warranty ran out. I explained that I'm not trying to get a free one. I want to purchase one. The agent kept repeating that he couldn't send me a free one. No matter how many times I said I didn't want a free one, I wanted to buy one, he would repeat himself. I asked if they had any for sale, thinking they might be out, and he just wasn't explaining properly. Yes, they had them for sale, but he couldn't send me a free one. 30 minutes of arguing back and forth like this. I never did get it through his head that I wanted to buy one. Story 4. In June of 2013, I moved into an apartment. I called the local utility company to switch the bill to my name at the beginning of June. They said, no problem, which sounded great. I paid electrical and didn't get a gas bill. I didn't worry too much since it was a warm summer. After another month, I didn't get a gas bill, so I called them. We don't have that information here, but I see you called so you won't get a late fee. Still great. Perfect. August and September get busy, so I don't notice the no bill. October, though, I call again, and they tell me that there's something about the meter, and I can't be billed. It's a whole house meter. They're the experts, right? Duck it, free heat. I asked the landlord, and he doesn't know anything about that, but he'll call me if he finds anything out. The next July, my landlord calls. He got a bill for $1,900 for the gas. It had been on a 1-year plan and just rolled in. We call the gas company, conference call with myself, landlord, and gas company, and they finally agree to send someone down to check the meters and figure it out within the month. So, sometime in October 2014, the inspector comes. No one tells me or the landlord this happened. I learn when I call mid-November to find out what's going on. He confirms that the problem was that the label on my meter had fallen off. There was a label for basement, floor 1 and floor 3 on their respective meters, and a label for floor 2 on the floor next to the meters. So we find that I am supposed to have paid the full bill, which by now is over $2,300, which is ridiculous. And we start getting it switched to my name. I pay monthly, but still don't have a physical copy of the bill for $2,300. January 2015, I move in with my fiance. Every week I call the utility back asking for the bill. They don't have it. They don't have anything in my name at this point. March, I get a call from a collection agency for the bill. I was pissed, but I owed it, or so I thought. So I asked for an itemized copy, and they say, yeah, sure. I didn't receive it. I got a phone call from the collection agency asking if I'd paid it because they no longer have access to the bill, but they have no record of me paying it. I call the utility. They have the bill. You showed that you were going to try to pay it now, so we bought back the debt. I asked for an itemized bill and get it about 3 weeks later. They were charging triple the heating rate for my non-heating natural gas, so-called, because I had a stove hooked up to it. They were charging late fees starting from the month I moved into my apartment. They were charging a $35 a month convenience fee when the rest of the people in the building only had a $15 connection fee. This was in mid-April. I start negotiating over prices and quoting other customers of theirs for the cost of service. I get transferred to different associates in customer service who all basically tell me to not be a dirtbag and pay my bill. You use the gas, you should pay the bill. Every time they seem to have no record of me ever calling before. Finally, I reach someone reasonable who corrects the rate to domestic heating. They erase the late fees and correct the convenience fee to the lower connection fee. The total bill ends up being about $1,000. Great, I think. Success. I ask for a copy of that in writing, and I'll pay it once I get it. I never get it. I just get a letter for the $1,000-ish from the same collection agency. I explain my story. They let me pay it off at 0.70 on the dollar just this August. Story 5. FedEx. Damn those gits. I decided to do Reddit Secret Santa last year for the first time and agreed to do International SS because I've mailed tons of stuff overseas without problems before. So what's another box? Used FedEx to deliver the package from us to Ireland because there was a bad blizzard that day. And the FedEx office was closer to my workplace than USPS or UPS. FedEx lady took 1 ducking hour to retype the packing slip that I filled out because the pen and paper version doesn't cut it anymore or some crap. She ducked up the phone number and the address, and I corrected her. Apparently, she ducked it up again because I got a call from the FedEx office in Ireland a week or so later saying that that street doesn't exist. I corrected the address with the customer service rep. A few days later, another call from FedEx saying that the street address doesn't exist because apparently the previous ducker didn't do her ducking job and actually fixed the address. About 3 days before I leave the country for my Christmas vacation, I checked in with my SSS to see if he got the package because FedEx said they attempted delivery. SS said he didn't. I called FedEx. They said that they can't find the guy's house because it doesn't exist. I looked on Google Maps and it's right ducking there. FedEx tried delivery a few more times, but apparently still can't find it. So they just dropped the package off at a warehouse that's a 20 ducking minute drive away from the delivery address. I asked FedEx if they could return the box to me. They said that I'd need to pay for shipping again. Duck you, FedEx. I paid over $100 to get that box sent to Ireland. I'm not ducking paying you another $100 to be sent back to me. Reddit SS offered to go to that FedEx warehouse to pick it up in person after they stopped attempting deliveries. When Reddit SS got there, the package wasn't in the ducking warehouse because they picked that day to try delivering again. Reddit SS got the delivery guy's number and told him to wait. He rushed home, but the delivery truck kept going. Over the next few weeks, FedEx would keep claiming to have attempted delivery, but nobody was home, even though S was home the entire ducking time. Things went into radio silence sometime in January, so I thought it got delivered at last. 6 months later, I got a phone call from some random company telling me that FedEx dumped my package at that company's warehouse in Utah. If I wanted it back, I needed to pay FedEx of all people an additional $30, or was it $60, shipping fee. At this point, I just want these duckers to stop reminding me of how ducking crafty FedEx is. So fine, whatever, give it back to me. Got a call from my local post office a week later saying that there's a package with my name and phone number on it, but they can't figure out the address because the handwriting was so bad. I gave them my address, got the box, and yeah. The shipping label from FedEx looked like it was written by a 3-year-old and then spat on by a llama because it was all smudged up scribbles. Kudos to the post office for figuring out my name and number from that mess. I decided to pass out the would-be Christmas presents to my friends who enjoy the Witcher franchise. When I opened up the box, I nearly had a heart attack because the Witcher pendant wasn't in its box. Turns out FedEx, or their random dumping ground company, needed to know what's in the box and thought it's funny to put a pendant inside a 1 bag of Blue Rock candy so that it's all sticky and gross. Duck FedEx. Duck it up the ass with a cactus. Story 6. Totally a first world problem. But the surrealism of the situation threw me off. I had an old clunker of a Dell computer that I was trying to inject a few more years of life into. It was still good, and I couldn't afford a brand new box at the time. Wanting to install an extra hard disk, I cracked the case open only to find out the thing's skeleton wasn't the traditional screw it into place sort. Instead, you have to put a pair of clips on your device and then snap it into place. There was a pair of spare clips on the machine's front end for an extra floppy drive. So I called Dell in the hope to maybe order and get a pair of hard disk clips shipped. I figured it'd be just a handful of bucks. Totally worth it. First person had no clue what I was talking about and transferred me to level 2. Level 2 had no clue what I was talking about and transferred me to his supervisor. Supervisor admitted that his office wasn't made to handle these sorts of calls and thus gave me the phone number for another call center, more specialized in spare parts. Called the new number. Explained my situation only to get told by the girl in a heavy Indian accent that I ended up in the billing department. She transferred me to their technical support. Tech support guy had no clue what I was talking about and transferred me to another guy. At this point, I realized I'd been given the number for a call center in India, and I could barely understood what they were saying from their accent being so thick. Other guy had no clue what I was talking about and transferred to yet another guy. Yet other guy had me describe in excruciating detail that part I wanted, the computer's model number, the computer's serial number. Then proceeded to tell me He didn't believe the computer could support a second hard disk. Bullcrap, mother ducker. The computer had two full-sized ID plugs, the original HD and the optical drive used one of them. I hand-waved his concern and stated it wasn't his problem to deal with. I'd assume the consequences. Yet other guy put me on hold for 10 minutes only to get answered by a lady who pretty much made me go through the entire story all over again. And so, after an hour of this insane foray since my first call, the lady proceeded to tell me that the pair of floppy disk clips I was holding in my hand at this very moment did not exist. I froze, thanked her for the help, hung up, turned away, and went to get myself crap-faced. These days, I'm far better equipped. Local bought case and set of parts. If I need anything new, I just order the part on whatever website and away I go. Story 7, Verizon Wireless. It started out on September 24th a few years ago when I was getting ready for a deployment because I'm in the military. I called up to get my wireless account put on hold because I was going to be out of country for an extended period of time where I would be unable to use the service. She was super nice and thanked me for my service and said she would put my account on hold on October 15th as I requested. I hung up, then went to call my gas company to cancel service since I was moving out of my place for duration, so I didn't have to pay rent while I was gone. My phone didn't work because she immediately disconnected my service. Great. I'm 3 days from flying to a third world country where I should already have my passport, but don't because the embassy is dragging their feet on getting my visa approved. After borrowing someone's phone at the nearby subway, I get my service connected again and emphasize to disconnect on October 15th. I wanted to give myself some overlap in the event my flight was grounded or delayed while stopping in Europe. Things work out, I make it out to my deployed location and start working. I realize while I'm there, I am being charged because I was able to get connection to check my account. Unfortunately, given my location, I was unable to find a reliable time to call them during their business hours. In terms of internet, there was no internet for us where we were at outside of military networks, which didn't support going to their website. I get back stateside after working 12 hours a day without a day off for 7 months. I call their customer service about the request, and I talk with someone about being reimbursed for their error to the tune of around $900. The lady was helpful and said she would submit my request and it would go to her bosses, and then I should expect to either hear back or receive my check in the mail within a month. A month passed and I didn't hear from them or receive any money. I call again and get a new person, and we go through the whole story for a second time. This song and dance happens 2 more times, and still nothing. Finally, I call and talk to a lady, and I explained my situation and my problem. She said she was sorry and would set it all straight. She would send me texts every week through her work messaging system, updating me on where my claim was and how it was being processed. It's now October, for 1 year, after I initially requested my phone to be shut off. I hadn't heard from her in a while, so I call her back and use her extension to talk to her. She informs me that my claim had been denied by some district leadership dude. After doing some digging, she calls me back later that week and says it was denied because my claim was not itemized and instead listed as one lump sum. She apologized and said she would resubmit with the charges itemized for the boss. At the end of October or beginning of November, I received my check in the mail. Story 8, PayPal. After getting a box of roof tiles shipped to me instead of a guitar amplifier, I ordered on eBay, called them and let them know what happened. This was the convo, me. So I got scammed. Instead of an amp, I received a box of roof tiles. I refused the shipment and sent it back. I can supply pictures. PayPal rep. Well, technically, this item was delivered. Me. It was a box of roof tiles, not an amp. PayPal rep. The ball is in your court. We showed something shipped out. PayPal rep clicked on me. I was so pissed. Called Citibank, which was the credit card company I used through PayPal. Told them the situation, instantly refunded me my money. Told me that even if they had shipped out the amp, but it was the wrong color, they would still refund me and try to get their money back from the seller. Awesome customer service. Story 9. This happened today. When it happened, I was shocked how little these people cared about the food they served and the attitudes of the staff in the restaurant. So I went out with my girlfriend's family for lunch today to a little restaurant nearby. We asked for a table. They led us to it, and as we were sitting down, this woman came over with cutlery for us. We were all trying to squeeze into our seats when the woman with the cutlery blurts out, "I'm trying to lay the cutlery." No please or thank you. She just demanded that we move. That was the first off thing to happen. We ordered our food, and after a short while, we could see our food being prepared. The restaurant had a kitchen that was open so that you could see all the food being prepared as you waited. As our food is about done, the chef, for reasons I cannot think of, takes off the gloves that he is wearing and sticks his hands into my girlfriend's mom's dish. He then proceeds to hand the dish to the waitress, and it comes over to the table. We're all looking at each other like, did that just happen? and my girlfriend's mom questions the waitress about the chef placing his hands in the food. Bear in mind that the waitress was looking directly at the chef as he did it. She claimed that the chef had his gloves on the entire time, and even when 3 or 4 of us stated that we had seen it happen, she still refused to come clean. At this point, my girlfriend's mom was furious. The waitress put the plate down in front of her, and my girlfriend's mom asked if she could have a new one instead. The waitress took the plate without a word and rushed back to the kitchen. No sorry or anything. She came back a moment later with some of our other dishes and almost spilled them over someone at the table. We watched the waitress then walk to the kitchen and start talking to the chefs. They all huddled together and started to look at us occasionally, as if we had done something really wrong. It unnerved us and we couldn't eat without feeling like we were being watched for the rest of the meal. Eventually, my girlfriend's mom's new dish arrived. The waitress left, and my girlfriend's mom told everyone that she had been watching the kitchen staff, and all they did was put her old dish under the heater and pretend to make a new one. She ate a bit of the dish, but in the end, she was put off of her food because she was so angry. To top it off, after our meal, we called the manager over to our table to explain why we were making a complaint. The guy sat with us and didn't seem to be taking any of it in. He had a blank look on his face and was just repeatedly saying yeah as we were explaining. After we told him what had happened, he said that he would deduct my girlfriend's mom's meal from the bill, and that was it. He didn't say anything about talking to his staff or making sure that the food was actually clean before serving. Honestly, it seemed like the whole restaurant staff didn't care. This is a nice restaurant too, so I really didn't expect people to behave like this there. Story 10. My wife's worst experience ever. First, a tiny bit of background. My wife, who at the time was not just lactose intolerant, but get earth-shattering cramps, horrendous smelling diarrhea, and feel like she was on fire reaction if she got just a little bit of any kind of dairy. Later, we found out this was caused by a faulty gallbladder that have since evicted. Well, she went to a McDonald's right across the street from her crappy retail job and ordered a McDouble with no cheese, like she did about 3 times a week because it was cheap and close, and she had very short lunch breaks at said crappy retail job. Well, she gets back to her work and noticed, hey, there is cheese on this. So she has to go all the way back over there and walks into the restaurant and asks to have it replaced. The manager comes over and asks what's wrong when she said she ordered it without cheese and they put cheese on it. He responded with a flippant, so? Now this manager was not some just out of high school kid. He had to be in his 30s, so you would think somewhere along the lines he had grown up, but I guess not. She explains to him she's allergic to cheese and needs one without cheese. So he hands the sandwich back to the grill area and they scrap the cheese off, rewrap it, and try to give it back to her. She watches them do this because he was too far away for her to stop them before he got back to the counter. And then, trying to be polite as possible, explains she cannot eat a sandwich that has had melted cheese scrapped off of it because she is freaking allergic, you stupid waste of human flesh. So he huffs and gives her more attitude and rolls his eyes and angrily throws the sandwich away and asks the grill to make a new one. She gets it, asks him if he is sure it doesn't have cheese on it. He says yes. And she leaves without checking it, gets back to work, opens up the bag, and guess what she finds on her damn sandwich? 2 slices of cheese. So she gets permission from her boss, since now she is already burned, like 35 minutes to get a stupid sandwich from across the street. And she normally only gets a 30-minute break, walks back over there, and the manager sees her calming and asks her, now what? My wife asked to speak to a different manager, who didn't give her any attitude, apologized personally, made her a new one, opened it in front of her to verify there was no cheese on it, and refunded her meal as well. My wife, of course, got both managers' names and their store number. We then proceeded to report the entire story to McDonald's corporate with a glowing review for the manager who handled it correctly, and a very condemning retelling of the crappy service manager it gave her. We got some gift cards from corporate, and the owner of that particular franchise verified the story with Manager B, and Manager A's employment was terminated. They asked my wife to come tell her story at an employee meeting, but she declined. Story 11. I had scheduled an appointment with a car salesman to looking into buying a new car. I knew I had good credit, and I get paid enough to afford a new car. Now I knew there might be some trouble since this is my first car and a first-time buyer. So I brought my older brother with me. Right when I come in asking for the dude, Richard, aka Banana, he goes straight to my brother and introduces himself and completely ignores me. All right, whatever. He probably didn't notice me. My brother tells him that I'm the one looking for a car. He looks at me and says, "Oh, you're looking to buy?" I say, "Yeah," I tell what car I had in mind. And beforehand, I had done a ton of research, and I already knew what car to buy, how much to put down. Hell, I even had the serial number for the car, or whatever it's called. Then I noticed that when I mentioned the car, it was a 2015 Challenger. He gave a look of, well, if had a face, it would be that. I gave a concerned look, and he tells me, "Oh, I can already tell you that you're not going to be accepted for that car." I ask him why, and he says that since I'm a new buyer, we don't really get accepted and that I would need help from a cosigner. I tell him I have my brother to help in case I would run into that trouble. He says, well, let's just see. Moments later, when he gets the keys to the car, he tells me to go get the car from the back so I could go on a test drive while he helps out another couple. By now, I've had enough. I tell him if I could work with someone else. He has the gall to ask why. I told him because I don't want to work with someone like him, someone so negative to begin with that it could jinx the sale. I'm superstitious like that. He says, whatever, fine, and leaves to help another couple. Mother Ducker didn't even ask for somebody to help me. Well, anyway, I guess a newbie was there, and I asked for his help, and already he was positive and enthusiastic. I talked to him, and we go for a drive. I told him I'd done the research. I know what to do, and I want the car. He come back with a manager or some other, and we get to business. We negotiate back and forth until we come to a consensus, a good one, too. Now, before he left, I told him about Richard and how I didn't want him to share in the commission that Jake got. Jake was the dude who helped me. He said he'll talk to Richard and assured me Jake will get what he earned. IDK if he did or not, but I left with a new car and Richard didn't get a sale. Story 12, I will tell my story of Time Warner Cable. We had 25 down, 5 up at the time. We were getting 4 down and barely anything up. Here's the start of the story. I moved from one block to another in the same town, 1.5 miles apart, and had 10 Mbps internet, which worked fine. My roommate could watch Netflix and so could I, also while playing online games. I moved to a new apartment and got better internet with it. I now had 25 Mbps. Awesome. However, when pinging, I only ever got about 4 Mbps. Watching 2 instances of Netflix was impossible, let alone Netflix in an online game. I originally called them, letting them know. Their first line of defense was, you need to upgrade to better internet. No, I don't. Then, plugging directly into the modem and all the troubleshooting steps. Many times the call would drop and I would have to start all over again from troubleshooting step 1. Telling them I just went through this did not help. They ended up swapping out the modem twice saying, oh, you have the wrong one. I had 4 on-site technician visits. Really only 2 though. First tech tested everything and his exact words were, I don't know. Second tech visit said I was never home and left a note on the door. I called out of work to be home and they never showed, never knocked, and no note on my door. Third visit was from a tech who, when called, started going through my troubleshooting steps over the phone. Instead of coming out, I told him it still happens when directly plugged into the modem. Then he asked me, do you use it while on wireless? That's your problem. I promptly told him to duck himself and he hung up on me. I got the 4th tech to come out and he finally checked the outside pole to realize there was a NIC in the line at the pole level. Great, all done. Right? Wrong. So he schedules a maintenance crew to come out and check the poles. 1 month rolls by and still nothing and no one. This is when I start the whole thing over. I call and speak directly to a supervisor who states, we cannot send out a maintenance crew unless a tech visits you first, which I told him they have. Then he repeats that sentence 10 times. Story 13. We had just moved to a small town and needed a place to get my boyfriend's Volkswagen looked at because it wasn't starting and was leaking oil quite a bit. We had to hunt around for a while for a place that was willing/able to work on his car, since apparently not everyone has the parts or training to work on VBABs. Finally found a place that said it wouldn't be a problem and tried to set up an appointment. The receptionist tells us they're booked out for 2 months and to call around then for an appointment. We try to suggest that we should just make an appointment now, since in 2 months logic would dictate that they will then be booked out another 2 months. It takes a few tries, but she finally, grudgingly, agrees to put us on the books. 2 months roll by, and we finally tow over the car and drop it off. After a week with no word from them, we call for an update. Receptionist says they're waiting on a part to be shipped. Cool. Another week. Another call. Same story. Waiting on a part. Rinse and repeat for 3 more months. Nowhere else would take the car, so we were stuck with them. Until one day, we call and the receptionist has no idea what we're talking about. Can't find any record of us dropping off the car. Doesn't know anything. We get her to transfer to her boss, who tells us it's been done and waiting for pickup since 2 weeks after we dropped it off. And why haven't we come to get it? We want to rip our hair out, but apparently the car is done, so at least that's one less problem to deal with. We go to pick it up the next day and the owner walks us through what he did. I don't remember specifics, but a line was busted and water had gotten in and frozen something, which was why it wouldn't start. So he fixed that, changed the oil filter and oil, and did a few other small things. Charged us a reasonable amount, and we went to leave. Noticed as we were getting in that the front bumper on the driver's side had been smashed in, which was new to us. Went back inside to discuss that, And the owner told us that he wasn't responsible for damage to vehicles while they were on his lot, and walked into his office and shut the door, leaving us with the receptionist. Figuring it would be a waste of time to try to speak with her about it, we just left and planned to speak with a lawyer about it later. We also later found out that he had put in the wrong size oil filter that was dirty and used, and hadn't actually fixed the problem we had brought it to him for. Anyway, as it continued to not start regularly, finally found another place in another town a few miles away that was willing to take it and had much better luck. Problems all solved except the bumper in a day. Story 14. I went to Sonic for lunch one day and my boss asked me to get her a Route 44 blue coconut slush. The girl that brought the stuff to my car was on roller skates. She hit a rock and the giant cup of blue came flying into my open window. She laughed her ass off and apologized while I got out to let it drip off of me instead of even more getting onto the tan interior of my new car. She left, came back with a wad of napkins and a handful of 10 cents off cardboard circles and tossed them in my car. As I was trying to wrap my brain around what was happening, my friend called me and said her baby had just been born, and she wanted me to go straight to the hospital. I got there and stopped in a bathroom to try to scrub blue dye off of my arms, face, and neck. I wasn't very successful, but my friend and her husband had a good laugh after a stressful day, so that was a plus. When I got home, my husband saw that the inside of my car had been dyed blue and had a layer of sugary crust. He strongly suggested that I call the manager and ask if they would have my car cleaned. I called, and the manager told me to go see him the next day. When I showed up, he said he could have one of his employees vacuum out my car and handed me a card with half-off drinks for life scribbled on it. I chalked it all up to Sonic ducking sucks and planned to let everyone I knew use that card for the rest of my life. First trip there, my husband handed the drive-through guy the card and he confiscated it and said it was only good for that one time. At that point, I was pretty pissed. I emailed corporate. The owner of that Sonic called me pretty quickly and claimed that it was his idiot son who gave me the card and that there's no such thing as a lifetime discount. I told him I didn't care about a discount and that I just wanted them to clean my car. I ended up with 10 free combo meals and a car interior that still attracts more dirt in certain spots, no matter how much I clean it. Story 15. I went to a bar after a college football game with some friends. I'm 21, but I don't drink too often, so I offered to be the designated driver for the night. So we show up to the bar, we get in, we are having a good time just hanging around and singing karaoke, and then I go up to the bar asking just for a Diet Coke. The bartender pours my drink and then turns around and asks for my ID. I handed him the same ID I gave the bouncer and have previously given him when I've ordered drinks, and he immediately tells me to leave with my ID in his hand. I told him I was the DD and he just yelled at me so the whole bar could hear. This is a fake ID, and if you don't leave voluntarily, then I will make sure you leave. I've got terrible anxiety and just left. All of my friends were just confused, and I left my ID there because the bartender demanded $100 for my ID back. Of course, a cop was waiting right outside the bar where I parked and pulled me over. Since he saw me just walk out and drunk driving, after games is a big problem at the school. I told the cop that the bartender took my real ID, but I gave him my name, social, and a government identification for my job. The cop could tell I was sober, and my government ID is a lot more legit than a license. So he ran my name, and it came back I was 20. The cop marched into the bar and demanded my ID was relinquished immediately, much to the bartender's surprise. One of my friends caught him saying I needed to pay him for my fake ID, and in his drunken stupor, told the police officer and showed the video. The bartender was immediately arrested on the spot. So having a crafty bartender led to his arrest, and now that he doesn't work there, I don't get carded there anymore. Story 16. I had an issue with my cable one time, not Comcast. I wasn't getting anything even close to the internet speed I was paying for, was randomly getting disconnected and all kinds of other issues. So I called the cable company and they sent a tech. He walks in the door, takes one look at the modem they gave us and declares it to be old, and therefore clearly the problem. So he replaces it. Declaring everything all fixed, he leaves. A couple days later, I'm having the exact same issue. So I called again. The person boosts the signal with no results, so they send out another tech. Technum 2 comes out, I explain what tech number 1 did, and he decides that the problem is the line coming into our apartment. So he replaces it, declares the problem fixed, and leaves. Later that night, same exact problem, so I called again. This time, the person on the phone escalates me to some other level after seeing my 2 previous tech visits, where they happily explain that there's a service issue in my area and they're terribly sorry, but they can't fix it until spring. They can't fathom why the other 2 people I spoke to, and neither of the techs knew about this issue, but rest assured, they were on it as soon as the snow melted. This made me mad, so I called again. This time, I wasn't nearly as nice to the poor person on the other end of the line. I demanded to speak with a manager, citing how ridiculous this was becoming, and how I refused to pay for service that wouldn't work properly until spring. They tell me the manager's gone for the day, but he will call in the morning. The manager is as apologetic as can be, gives me a bill credit for my trouble, and sends out another tech to see if there's something they can do in the meantime. I'm not particularly optimistic at this point, but I figure what the hell, and take a third day off from work. Tech number 3 is determined to fix this problem. He crawls in the ceiling, replaces all of the wires, gives us a new modem, all of it. After about an hour and a half of doing stuff, he comes back inside with the most corroded piece of cable I have ever seen, declaring he found the problem. Apparently, water had been getting into the box out by the road and had corroded the connection between the box and our building. He was shocked no one else had called to complain, and even more shocked that the 2 other techs had been out and hadn't thought to check this when we described our problem or after they hooked up their equipment to check the signal. He explains that to check it would require a ladder, which is probably why no one did. What do you know? That finally fixed it. Story 17, Hertz Rental Cars. So I purchased a travel package with my wife that has the rental car through Hertz. The car itself is paid for, and the agent tells us that all we'll pay for is the taxes in the realm of $80. Cool, no problem. We get to Hertz, they charge 3 different taxes, 3 fees they won't elaborate on, the driving under 25 fee, and the insurance that I did not ask for. They charge by card $450. I tell them that I don't want the insurance because my current insurance covers rentals already. They say they can't remove the charge until after I bring the car back at the end of the week. They literally just charged by card about 45 seconds ago, but can't undo it for a week. Whatever. I take their crappy car that smells, has no working radio, no auxiliary jack, poor air conditioning, worth less than the $451 I just paid, and we continue on with our honeymoon with a huge dent in our vacation budget that we did not expect. The end of the week rolls around and I bring their crap mobile back to their parking garage. They service several people around us, and we get completely ignored. I read a sign to the right of the car that clearly states, "Leave the car running with the keys, we'll take care of it, just log your mileage, gas, and pick up a receipt in the lobby." I'm like, cool. I get to the lobby and talk to the receptionist, and she goes super idiot mode, saying the sign doesn't say that, I'm wrong, blah, 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 whatever. I take from the company and leave. About an hour later, while awaiting our flight back home, I realize I left my GPS in the car. My fault, I know. I call them to report it to Lost and Found, and I go ignored for about 5 days. They finally get back to me saying it was never recovered, found. I reported it 1 hour after I left the car with the attendants. It was suction-ed to the windshield and plugged in. Where the hell did it disappear to? Anyway, I check on my card over the next few days, and Hertz never takes the insurance charge back like they said it was. I contact them, and they get all why saying that I never agreed to it, and I'm basically a liar. So I take my ass pounding again, because they refuse to fix their duck up. So my experience with Hertz summed up is that they charge about $700, $800 to rent a crap mobile for 5 days. They misplace expensive devices if you accidentally leave it behind. They are super kawaii if you try to complain and will not budge. And lastly, they will call you a liar and take your money without your approval. Story 18, Health Insurance. Having to explain to the first line of personnel who appear to be there simply to wear you down what a procedure is, what the codes mean, and why something is, in fact, covered by my insurance. My doctor's office actually provided me all the information, knowing that my insurance was denying the claim, assuming that I would probably just pay it. It took several phone calls, but they did pay the claim. It was extremely frustrating, though, especially when you are sick and having to fight for your insurance to do their job. Story 19, Local Eye Clinic. I was referred by my low-income clinic. Amazing people there, 100% of the time, for an eye exam. This eye clinic has a partnership with the low-income clinic. Very cheap eye exams. So I go on and the receptionist is a little cold, but whatever. The actual doctor was great, very friendly. I hear some texts caring about some guy in the waiting room, but no one talks to me about it. When I step out back into the waiting room, my partner's there to meet me, and he whispers to me. This receptionist was not happy to see me. I think, all right, that's not totally out of line, though I did mention before I went in that my partner would be arriving at some point to wait for me. Instead, all the techs and receptionists wandered around the office caring about the guy, and no one talked to me. I go to pay, and suddenly it's a whole lot more than the referral should have gotten. The receptionist, now all piss and vinegar, starts caring at me, claiming I was missing information, contrary to what they told me on the phone, and would have to pay them the full amount right now. I was polite as I could be, but firmly insistent that I was told something else on the phone. After a bunch of crafty attitude, she gives me a bill for the full amount anyway, and insists that I fax her relevant info to get out of it. A few days later, I go to put in my script for glasses at my clinic and realize I've left my script at home. No prob. I get the pharmacy fax and call the eye clinic. Of course they'll send it over. No problem. 30 minutes goes by. No fax. I call again. The receptionist giggles and says, "Oops, I got distracted. I'll send it now." 20 minutes. No fax. I call again. "Oh, it's you again?" I hear someone talking to her on her end and she starts laughing again. "Oops, I forgot. I'm sending it right now. It's in my hand." 20 minutes. No fax. Call again, this time to check to make sure I gave her the right number. At this point, the receptionists at the low-income clinic are looking at each other and at me in pity. Oh, I just completely spaced. I stay with her on the line until I hear her fax it, and then I go home and cry because I was so ducking frustrated. Oh, and I still don't have glasses because the ones they gave me came broken. Story 20. Steam customer support. It's a bunch of automated bullcrap. 1. Purchase an online MMO called Otherland when it came out. 2. Like most MMO launches, there were a lot of server issues. I spent 2 hours trying to log in until I actually got in. I wanted to be patient because I understand why it was hard for them, and I thought it would be a good game. 3. After I finally got in, I realized after 30 minutes that they lied about a lot of features, the game doesn't actually have them, or they aren't as they say they are. 4. Go to refund the game because it was falsely advertised. Steam has this policy where if you play more than 2 hours, you can't get a refund. This is obviously to stop people from buying a game, beating it, then refunding it. 5. Unfortunately for me, I spent 2 hours just trying to log in, and that counted as playtime by the system, so I wasn't eligible for an automatic refund. 6. Steam asks me to fill out a bunch of forms and type out why I'm refunding it. So I fill this in and explain my situation. I made it very clear I only got to play for 15-30 minutes before I closed it and requested a refund, and the other 2 hours logged were spent struggling to log in. 7. Every time I request a refund, I get a response exactly 70 minutes later stating that, "Sorry, we can't provide a refund because you played more than 2 hours." I clearly stated that no, I only played for 30 minutes. 2 hours were spent trying to get the game to work. Basically, the system intentionally waits 70 minutes to give you the impression that a human is reading your request, but it isn't. Several times in a row, it took the exact same amount of time just to give me the same response. IDK, why they even asked me to explain the situation if there isn't a human that reads it. Maybe it's a deterrent to stop people from refunding because it takes work. Or maybe it's to give people somewhere to vent, because maybe it leads to more satisfaction if you can say why. But I certainly know that nobody reads it. I ended up wasting $30 and there's nothing I can do. If I charge back with the credit card company, they ban your whole account and revoke access to the games you own. I'm never buying from Steam again if I can afford it. Story 21. Ford Corporate and the dealership. I made the mistake of buying a new Ford Explorer. After 8 months, the aluminum hood started oxidizing and was blistering and cracking the paint along the leading edge. Took it to the dealer to get fixed 500 miles on it. The dealership completely botched the paintwork, repairing it. My wife and I loose our crap at the terrible paintwork our new truck had. They left us in a rental and kept it to repair the repair. Next day we were told it was done. It was worse, missing clear coat, trash in the paint, tape lines along the leading edge. I explained that not only was this horribly crafty work, but it would oxidize again. They kept it and repaired the repair of the repair. 4 months later, it is oxidizing again. Took it back and asked if they used the epoxy primer when they did the initial repair. What? Was the answer I got. Had to have it fixed again. And again, when it was all said and done, they had to repair the repair of the repair of the initial repair of the repair of the repair. And they broke the clips for the seal under the hood, and it was just hanging and looked like crap. Was told it was like that when it came in. Had to call Ford Corporate and GM of dealership. Got nothing from anyone. Fast forward to last month. Oxidizing again. And again have to have multiple repairs of repairs done. Shop manager tells me there is nothing else he can do for me, and tells me I have to take delivery of my vehicle with possibly the crappiest paint job yet. Call Ford. They will not do anything, because it is a dealer problem. Explained the oxidization. Still told it is a problem with their repair. Get operations manager over to look at the problems with my truck. He says they're going to order a hood. At this point, we fill out the lemon law paperwork as this will be their last attempt to fix. Hood comes in, unpainted, so we have accomplished nothing. Then I am told I have to pay $100 deductible to Ford Corporate for the hood. I'm not paying a damn thing. Dealer says he will pay it if I take the negative comments off Twitter and Facebook. I will not because I am still not satisfied, and the repairs are merely a band-aid, so the hood just sits there while we talk to our attorney. Story 22. Best Buy stole a TV from my company. I ordered 2 26-inch TVs and 4 32-inch TVs for the call center I'm in charge of from Best Buy on the internet. I was delivered one 26-inch TV, one laptop, and 432-inch TVs, one of which had a cracked LCD panel. I called to try to get my order straightened out. They say they will have UPS pick up the laptop and defective TV and send out the replacements. I feel like this is no problem. Next day, Upsal comes and knows they are to pick up the item. A month goes by and I call Best Buy to find out why I haven't received my replacements. Rep tells me that the 26 has shipped and the 32 is still waiting to have the damage verified. I asked to speak to a supervisor since there is nothing else the rep can do. He tells me there is no one else to transfer me to, but says I will have both TVs within 10 days. 26-inch TV arrives, but the 32 does not. I call back. Talk to a supervisor who basically tells me that the TV was marked to be shipped, but then removed from my account. He cannot transfer me anywhere else. He can only send my info to their investigation department. They never call back. I call again, get info sent to investigation, no call back. I just ask for my money back, forget the TV, but they say they can't do it. I call every number I can find for Best Buy over the next 7 months, literally 7 months. Every single department I get is a 50-50 on. If they actually have a supervisor I can talk to, and beyond that, not a single person at Best Buy could transfer me anywhere else. No one. Not a single person who was supposed to call me back ever did. I spent at least 2 hours a week for 7 months trying to get the TV I ordered. I emailed customer service at least 10 times during that. I tried being calm, I tried yelling, I tried reasoning, and I tried threatening legal action, and not one person at Best Buy did anything for me. Since this was a work purchase, eventually we decided that I was wasting more company resources by calling than what the TV was worth. I had bought another TV from Amazon months earlier. I will never shop at Best Buy again. Story 23. This literally just happened to me. I ordered from a lingerie company called Well Fitting, who resell bras made by the Polish company Comexim. Well Fitting sells them at a huge markup, but the idea is supposed to be that you're paying for the ease of ordering them through an American company, and they have easy returns and exchanges to an American address. First off, they don't mention that the bras still ship from Poland, so it takes just as long. They seem to sort of disguise it as the time it takes to make the bras. I didn't get a shipping notification until the package came into the US, but the returns address was from Poland. I sent my order to their American returns address to exchange for a different size. I made sure to purchase tracking as they made it clear on their site, you are responsible for your returns package getting to us. It arrived on the 12th of September. I didn't hear a peep from them, not even an automated, "We've received your return and we'll be processing it" email. There was no info on their site on how long it takes them to process returns. After a week, I emailed them. Again, I heard nothing. After another week, I tried again. In a few more days, I realized I was never going to get a response, so I filed a case with PayPal. That's one of the reasons I use PayPal whenever I can. You always have recourse. Unsurprisingly, only then did I get their attention, and they apologized to me profusely, but tried to push me into going through with the exchange after I'd made it clearer I now wanted my money back. And their peace offering was a 5% off code, 5%. I followed my gut and didn't let them push me into receiving products I didn't want. And as of this morning, I finally have my money back. I definitely should have listened to people about their horrible reputation. I can't believe I had to go to the length of filing a PayPal dispute against a store just to contact them. Why provide a customer service email if you ignore it or don't check it? In this age, it is not hard to stay in touch with your customers. I don't understand why they would do things they know lose them business, when it's so easy to just answer your damn emails and send your customers updates on their orders. Story 24. Sprint charges me $235 activation fees for a phone and tablet that I didn't even have on my plan. I figured there was a mix-up and called them, but they advised me since my friend left my plan. We had a family. She left to get her own because she wanted a tablet and didn't want to have to figure out how much she had to pay for her part each month, that I had to pay her activation fees. I told them that makes no sense. If she left my plan and got a new phone and tablet, she should totally have to pay those. They hold firm. I had just bought a new phone and knew I was within the 14-day cancellation policy where I could bring back the phone and not be responsible for anything. So I told the customer service rep that I'd like to cancel my policy and return my phone, figuring that would change their tune. I'm then transferred to retention. Retention asks if there's anything they can do to keep me. I tell them to waive the activation fees. Retention says, nope, nothing they can do. It dawns on me. Maybe I'm asking for the wrong thing. Maybe I need to ask for a credit instead, because maybe they really can't waive activation fees. I asked for a supervisor. Tell supervisor that I'd like a credit to cover the activation fees so that I don't have to pay them. Supervisor says they can't do that. Supervisor asks if there's anything else they can do to keep my service. I tell them at that point to shove it. I return my phone to the Sprint store I bought it from. confirm verbally 3 times that I will not owe anything. Next month, I receive a bill for the full amount of the tablet and phone that I never returned. They weren't even on my plan. Took a while to get that all straightened out. Recently received an email from Sprint saying that they miss me, and they'd pay up to 300 biz of any ETF to get me back. I tweet them and ask why they weren't willing to waive $70 2 years ago, but now are willing to pay up to $350. T-Mobile replied and told me that they'd pay it too, with a link to their deals. Smooth move. I still don't have either company. Story 25. This will probably get buried, but I'd love to get this off my chest since it happened so recently. I wanted to buy a treadmill. I did my research and picked one that had all the features I wanted at a good price and proceeded to order it from the manufacturer's website. Website errored out right after I entered my credit card. Duck. Not knowing if the order had gone through, I checked my online banking, and lo and behold, the charge was pending on my credit card. Twice. UTF? I had to spend an entire afternoon on the phone sorting it out with them since I had neither an order number nor a confirmation number. Fun, and eventually they removed the thousands of dollars pending on my card. The next week, when everything is cleared up, I call and place my order with a customer rep since I obviously don't trust their website. All good, he says. It'll ship the next day and arrive in 2 weeks. Yay, well, 2 weeks come. 2 weeks go. No sign of a treadmill delivery, so I call to ask. New customer rep guy takes a look and, oh, looks like the last guy didn't enter my order correctly, and it wasn't processed at all. Without a single apology, the guy fixes the error and says it'll ship tomorrow and arrive in 2 weeks. Ugh, 2 weeks wasted. Now this time I'm paying attention. When 2 days pass without getting an email with my tracking number, I call again. Why hasn't my order shipped? Oh, don't worry. They just got a new shipment, and the pending orders will go out Monday. Your patience is appreciated. K. TCE checks. Bye. Monday comes and goes. I call again. Keep in mind, each call involves 10-15 minutes sitting on hold. Another new person checks my order and tells me, oh, we seem to be completely out of stock. What? On Friday, your guy said you just received a whole new shipment. She tells me she'll look into it at the warehouse and call me back the next morning. 2 days. Later, she calls back and says my treadmill has shipped. Finally. I wait a few days. No email with a tracking number. I have to call yet again to get my tracking number. The treadmill finally arrived yesterday, 5 weeks after I first tried to order it. Never ordering from them again. Story 26. AT&T Wireless back in the mid-2000s. I moved states and changed my phone number with AT&T to a local number. However, they kept trying to send me bills from the previous number on account, saying that I broke contract and needed to pay an early termination fee since I discontinued service, with one number to set up new service with another number. I refused to pay it, spent about 20 hours on the phone with customer service, went to my local store 6 to 8 times to discuss this with various manager representatives, and even had a collection agency call me. After about 4 months of this and having my service cut off and cut back on multiple times, they finally decided to stop pursuing me after I had to write numerous letters to various people and explain what happened to a number of people. And every time I would start telling them my story after they pulled up my account information, they would go, oh yeah, looks like you have some history with us. After it finally got settled, I was at the end of my contract with AT&T, and they tried getting me to sign another with a discounted new phone. I told them that the only way I would sign back up with AT&T would be to have a written offer of 6 months of free service, plus a free phone for putting up with the bull crap of the previous 4 months. The manager told me they can't offer free service, and I told them as politely as I could to have a nice day and that AT&T should remove my name from any future correspondence, or I would consider the communication harassment since I have written letters asking them to stop communicating with me. Never heard from them in almost 10 years now. Story 27. I hate to post the obvious, but Comcast. Most recently, I wasn't getting an internet connection after a power outage. I called and they said they would send out a tech. I specifically asked if it would be free to do this, and she confirmed with a yes 2 separate times in the conversation. I set up the date for them to come several days out for a Thursday. Well, Thursday comes and goes with no tech. I call and the CES says, oh, it looks like she scheduled it for Friday. I tell her that I'm not available Friday, but I am the following Monday, which would make it a week without service. I confirm with her that there will be no charge for the tech to come out, and she hangs up. I have a sneaking suspicion that it wasn't set up correctly though, so I call back again to ask when my appointment is scheduled for, and they had set it for Friday still. Finally, we get it switched properly. The tech comes out, plugs some sort of reader into my connection, and determines that the power outage has probably damaged my computer, not their connection. He leaves, and I get the problem fixed on my own. Next month, I get a bill with an $80 service charge for the tech. I call and am barely holding back my rage, expressing that I was told at least 3 times by separate CSRs that there would be no charge. Well, unfortunately, ma'am, that is not a guarantee that there will be no charge, the guy tells me. Are you kidding me? I tell them that could have figured it out on my own if they hadn't told me it would be free. So I wouldn't have asked for the service of a guy doing a simple task in the first place. Let me make a bargain with you. We can pay half, if you can pay the other half. I tell him no flat out and ask that they remove the charge entirely. He tells me that he has to submit it for approval, and it may or may not be taken care of. Naturally, they forgave the bill entirely. This happens at least twice a year with this company, and I'm always dreading the next conversation I'll have with them. The good news is I've become very efficient at it. Story 28. Love Film. I tried canceling, and all they would do is put my account on holiday. They simply refused to cancel my subscription. I eventually gave up and accepted the holiday. As that was ending, I tried again. They repeated the holiday thing, even though I couldn't have any more holiday time on my account. Then they said that I can reduce my subscription. I was on an expensive one as it was for games, but I wanted to completely cancel. In the end, I sent them an email threatening legal action, as well as mentioning the Data Protection Act and telling them to remove all my details from their site as I didn't trust them. They finally canceled, but my account was still there, including my payment details. So I sent them another email threatening legal action again before they finally removed my details. I'm glad Amazon bought them, then gutted them. Story 29. So many, but the latest is with our internet. Apparently the house we bought has a flat roof. Our box is just laying on the roof in a dip. Whenever it rains, there's a puddle where the wires are. So about 3 to 5 times a year, they had to come replace it even though they should have moved the box. They offer me a great deal on faster internet. Both me and my husband are gamers, so it made sense to get it. I get them to come fix our internet, and they decide to just go ahead and do the wiring on the inside instead of charging me $50 twice. The workers are great for the most part that come to your house. The following workday, that was a Friday, new net was being set up on a Monday, I told them to just call me and I'd run over since I worked a few blocks from the house. They never did. I get home and my new modem is sitting in front of my door. I go hook it up and it's not working. I work on it and realize it's on their end, not mine. I call really angry and tell them to either fix it today, since the worker was too lazy to check to make sure it worked, or cut it off that I was sick and tired of not having internet. Previous week had been no internet the whole time because they refused to move their equipment. I get told I'll have to pay $200 to cut it off. No. I was never told there was a fee to cut it off and no papers were signed, no. Plus not working. The way to not pay a fee? Do a survey online. I went off on him because by then it had been an hour of how I have no internet due to them. I finally had to hand the phone to my husband. He's normally the yelling one, and me the calm. But how am I supposed to take an online survey with no internet? How? We got it cut off and refunded for paying for net we never got. New internet is pretty good. Goes out sometimes, but maybe 1/8 of the time the other did. Story 30. IHOP. I went there with my girlfriend for breakfast one day, and they had a double blueberry pancake special. It was blueberry pancakes that came with blueberry syrup on it. I asked the waitress politely if I could get that without the blueberry syrup, as I wanted to add one of the other syrups they had available myself. The waitress flipped her crap and stormed off. About a minute later, the manager comes over and apologizes and says she will be waiting on us herself. So I think that was weird, but all right, so I asked the same question of the manger, and she doesn't understand. But after I clarify, she has to then go ask the cook if they can do that. I'm thinking seriously, guys. It's that hard to just not put syrup on something. You have to ask before you let me order it, but whatever. So she comes back and says they can, so I order it. Fast forward to us getting our food, and lo and behold, I get a plain short stack of pancakes. No blueberries baked in, no blueberry syrup. So to summarize, I asked ahead of time if it's possible. The manager went back and verified with the cook that they could do it. Then they messed it up. And this is all after the waitress went off on me for asking a simple question. I'm pretty pissed at this point and point this all out to the manager. To top it off, after waiting 40 minutes total for a short stack of blueberry pancakes, having my waitress yell at me and storm off, then the manager verify my order with both me and the cook. Then she rang it up wrong. It was not the cook's fault she rang it up no blueberries. And all that, she didn't offer to comp anything, not even our drinks. As we were paying, I'm pissed, and I don't say a word. I just kind of have my jaw clenched, trying very hard to not go off on her. She has the stupidity to open her mouth and say to my girlfriend, "Now he's a happy camper. We just needed to get some food in him." Story 31. In 2012, my computer was having issues. I'm no expert, and I live in a very small town, so there's really only one option. I took my computer to the guy on deck. 2012. A week later, I got it back. He said it worked fine. I paid him $50 for his trouble, inspection, and cleaning. I take it home, turn it on, and nothing. Dude didn't do anything. So then the waiting game began. He worked really odd hours, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and I worked in a city a town over, and I normally left work at 7:30 a.m. and didn't get home until 7:30 p.m. So he bananaed me around for 3.5 months. It's now going on April 2013. I need this thing for my enjoyment. Luckily, he told me he ordered parts, he told me he wiped it clean and did a fresh restart. Said I could pick it up in 2 days, then I stopped in, making time away from work, and no, it wasn't ready. This went on for 4 months. Finally, I'd had enough, and I took it back from him, didn't pay him anymore, and I sold it on Craigslist. For $40, I got totally ripped off in this deal. The guy who bought it from me got it working 2 hours after I paid him and called to ask for the password. I ended up buying a $2,000 computer, which I had planned on anyway. But instead of paying cash for it, I had to take a 0% interest loan. My girlfriend at the time, now ex, said her grandmother took her computer to him. He fixed it, but when she got it back, the computer she got was not hers, and in fact a different person's altogether. This should have been a red flag. I'm still pissed at that English mother ducker. I really want to go in there one day and beat the crap out of him for bananing around with my computer and not fixing it. I'll send his pastry-eating ass back to the queen in a goddamn box. Story 32, Wisconsin, DMV. Backstory, I'm a former military brat and was born on an airbase. I am and have always been an American citizen. However, people find out you were born overseas and they automatically come to the conclusion that you're not a citizen, which is stupid because I have an American birth certificate, passport, all of it. My parents are American citizens. I was born on an American airbase, which counts as American soil. We moved back to the States when I was a child and grew up in Chicago. I moved to Wisconsin for work and decided that I needed to get a Wisconsin driver's license. Now my birth certificate states that I am American citizen 10 times all over the form, but it looks different than your average citizen. It's also printed vertically, so it can throw people off. I had all of my documentation in my old Illinois driver's license that I'd gotten when I was a teenager. The lady at the front desk must have not ever seen a foreign-born birth certificate and thought it was a fake. She kept reading it over and flipping it back and forth. I pointed out to her repeatedly that I'm an American citizen. I was just born overseas. She even took my birth certificate over to her boss, who confirmed that it was authentic and to just get me a new license. And she still didn't believe us. After a lot of huffing and puffing from me, showing her my old driver's license, and trying to point out to her that it's just because my dad was in the military that she finally gave up. I should mention that this DMV wasn't actually busy, but because of this woman's stubborn refusal to believe me or her boss, she ended up wasting my full lunch hour and then some because of her arrogance and stupidity. Honestly, this still pisses me off. Story 33. Well, I moved from NM to AZ a while back. On my last night in NM, this banana head cop pulls me over, telling me my taillight is out on my motorcycle. It was a loose wire and I fixed it on the spot in front of the officer. My friend who was with me had mentioned that it was my last night in town. Of course, the officer gave me a fix-it ticket, even though it was already fixed. I figured that whatever, nothing will happen because I am moving and didn't pay it. I go to AZ, get a license, and everything is great, till one day I get pulled over. I talk to the cop and find out my license is suspended, being it's not from anything in it. The cop is cool and just tells me to take care of it. So begins the absurd spiral of state-to-state data sharing. AZ wouldn't unsuspend my license because it was suspended in NM. NM wouldn't allow my license to be unsuspended because it was suspended in AZ due to it being suspended in NM. Well, after spending about 34 hours on the phone and speaking to the head of MVD and NM, they agreed that I had paid the fine, $62, and then lifted the suspension. Turns out that the states honored each other's suspensions, but didn't have any kind of recourse for actions such as this. All for a $62 ticket I should have just paid. Literally for days, both places pointed fingers at each other as to why the issue couldn't be fixed.